Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and you're watching my review for Tokyo Ravens episode 22. Alright? And this episode is freaking awesome, you guys. Oh my god. Oh, yo, this episode was freaking awesome. Alright? Was there anything in this episode that wasn't awesome? I mean, even the start of it was pretty legit. I mean, you see Harutora sitting in the room, all right, and you see the spider familiar Shikigami thing come down, all right, crawl down the window, and it leaves him like a blood message that Genji Kurahashi is the real enemy. Okay, all right. Then we see Touji and Kyoko and Suzuka and Tenma. He didn't show up at the meeting spot, that the place that they chose to meet up to end up going to the Onmyo agency to break Harutora out. Tenma didn't show up. Kyoko did though. However, she's still showing signs of like being messed with from that time, like her space started to get distorted. So she's still trying to figure out what that was about. Um, there was a brief scene of Jean Otama getting an email slash text slash whatever. Japan seemed they look like texts to me, but Japan always calls them emails in anime, whatever. But it's pretty much a text. He gets a text from Mio Kurahashi asking if he knows where Kyoko is because she just disappeared from her room. All right, and he's like, "Hey, sorry." He doesn't actually reply to her though. You see, he apologizes to Kyoko and then closes his phone and leaves. So, like, did he send a message to Mio telling her where he thinks Kyoko is, or well, I don't know. But whatever. Well, no, not whatever. I mean, that could, if Mio Kurahashi shows up, the things are gonna get pretty like things are already pretty legit. But if Mio Kurahashi shows up, that'll really make things interesting. So maybe she will show up. Who knows? But the next thing that happens is Harutora. He's wiping away the blood from the window so that no one sees it when they come in. And Chihiro Mutobe comes in. All right, and he mentions that he mentions that Soma's been kind of messed up by the whole situation because Natsume dying was certainly not what she was going for. She liked Natsume. She wanted to be friends with Natsume. Natsume was like the person who she thought was like destined to work with them, and like she wanted to be friends with Natsume. She legit cared about Natsume, so her actions killing Natsume is a pretty big hit to her. All right, so she's been kind of messed up ever since then. All right, but that Chihiro mentions that to Harutora, and that she's been put to sleep. Oh, that was a bad way to phrase it. She's sleeping right now. They got her to sleep. Um, and after he tells Harutora that and a couple of things, he takes him to where Genji and Shido are. All right, and this is when we learn. All right, this is when the episode just starts getting awesome. All right, we start learning about the Taizen Fukun ritual, and apparently there are different types of Taizen Fukun ritual. Okay, the Taizen Fukun ritual is like an entire system of magic. All right, there are multiple types to it. Apparently, the way it works is that they access the spiritual being that's known as Taizen Fukun, and they use that to manipulate souls. But like, if there are different types of Taizen Fukun rituals, that means there are different ones with different requirements, different costs, different limitations. We don't know. Is there a Taizen Fukun ritual with no limitations at all? I mean, this opens the door for a wide array of possibilities. I mean, it could be that there's just no cost at all. It could be that you have to be revived as a familiar. There could be literally anything could happen. All right, until we get more details on which specific version of the Taisan Fukin ritual is going to be used, then we can't really start to draw any conclusions or create any theories on some of the repercussions that are going to occur from the Taisan Fukun ritual being used on Natsume, except for, it's a forbidden spell, so there are going to be legal consequences and stuff like that. But I mean, other than that, you can't really figure out all of what's going to happen. But even more information about the Taisan Fukun ritual, starts to talk about it, and he says that Yako Tsuchimikado, his final Taizen Fukun ritual actually succeeded. It didn't fail. And he also says that it didn't cause that great spiritual disaster, whatever, blah, 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 from years ago. All right. Instead of causing the great spiritual disaster, what it did was change the system of Taizan Fukun rituals. All right, and he was going to start talking more about it too, but Genji stopped him before he could. So that's unfortunate, but whatever. Um, Genji decides to invite Harutora, not Yako, all right, not Yako, Harutora specifically, to be their comrade, and him and Shido, they start talking more about the whole relationship between the Kurahashi and Soma families, and the Tsuchimikados, how they were branch families, how they were helping Tsuchimikado out, accomplishing his goals. And Genji pretty much says he wants to revive the relationship that those families had, so that they can complete Yako's ambitions and all that. All right. And Harutora comes up with this realization. I don't know how important this is. It might not be important at all, but just in case, Harutora mentions that he realizes that the reason he was brought up in a branch family was so that he didn't have to go through all of that, so that he wasn't brought up with the stress of knowing that he might have to lead all of these, well, not all of these branch families, but these two branch families. He didn't want to have to. They didn't want him to have to grow up with the stress of Yako's ambitions and trying to decide whether or not he is capable of living up to them, or even if he wants to live up to them at all. Of course, by doing that, they sacrificed Natsume and made her go through that instead. But I guess they prefer to sacrifice someone who isn't Yako and have them go through that than have the actual reincarnation of Yako go through that, because then it could have more dire consequences. Like, for instance, if Harutora starts losing control of his powers again, like he did when Natsume died a couple episodes ago, it could have bigger repercussions. So I guess I kind of understand it's, the whole greater good kind of thing. Sacrifice the few to save the many. It's along those lines, but yeah, I don't know if that whole thing that Harutora was talking about is gonna be important at all, but whatever. I just figured I'd mention it anyway. And their conversation gets interrupted. The conversation that Genji and Shido and Harutora are having gets interrupted by a phone call, and Shido senses that they have visitors. All right, and we see Doma and Ashia pretty much doing a frontal assault on the Onmyo agency. All right, this dude had so many spirit disasters out there, it was even funny. Mari went out there to try and purify him. She's like, I can't possibly do it. There's no way I can purify all these things. They're just too awesome for me to handle. All right. So then Miyachi ends up giving her some instructions on strengthening a barrier around the agency or something like that. Then he just incinerates all of them, all of the spiritual disasters. So, impressive on his part. And while Doma and Ashia is outside, Jin Ultimo is actually already inside. Then that's when he gets attacked by Kagami. Alright, so we've got Jin Ultimo versus Reiji Kagami. And we've got Doma and Ashia versus Miyachi Isao or Iao, whatever his name is. I don't remember what his first name is. I don't really care. He's Miyachi. That's all I need. That's the only name I need to know. Alright. But those two fights right there are already epic. I mean, just in the few seconds I saw like tigers, I saw like a fire dragon, like it's just awesome. I can't wait till we see more of that. Hopefully we do see more of that, because that was epic. All right, that was awesome. All right, and while all this is going on, since Miyachi and Kagami are handling Otomo and Domanashia, Genji and Shido just continue, business as usual. They just continue their attempt to pull Harutora to their side. And Genji actually does convince Harutora to say yes. He says, your friends are going to, at the end of the day, you want to revive Natsume. We will allow you to do that. We will help you to do that. We will help you succeed in doing that. But your friends, the Taizen Fukun ritual is a forbidden spell. They aren't going to be for that. They're not going to want you to do that. They're going to be against it. You have to join up with us if you want to see her again. All right, and he was going to say yes, but then Cohn shows up. Well, I mean, Cohn is always there, but Cohn shows up, and she convinces him to. Well, she tries to get him to rethink the decision entirely, but she can't get him to she can't get him to give up on the idea of reviving Natsume. But at the very least, she gets him to decide to not rely on Genji and Shido and Chihiro Mutobe and Soma and the Twin Horn Syndicate because they aren't trustworthy. And Harutora knows they aren't trustworthy. He said, how did he phrase it? He says, I know they aren't trustworthy. I don't trust them at all. And they know I don't trust them either. But they're using me and I'm using them. We're just using each other. You know, it was something like that. But Cohn tries to get him to realize that trust isn't something you can just sacrifice in order to accomplish a goal. Like, it's something. It's more important than that. And she convinces him that, you know, if you want to use the Taizen Fukun ritual on Natsume, then fine. All right, I guess I can't stop you from doing that. But if you're going to do it, at least do it without relying on them. These people that you already know you can't trust. So he ends up, and she gets him to she kind of raises his self-esteem a little bit because he's like, he still doesn't see himself as that genius Yako Tsuchimikado. He still sees himself as Harutora Tsuchimikado, the guy who up until not too long ago was like failing his classes, and Natsume was forcing him to study around the clock so that he could pass, you know? He still sees himself as that. He's kind of started to change his opinion of himself after everything that's happened, but still not entirely. And Cohn makes him realize, you know, you can do whatever you want. You think you aren't capable of using the Taizen Fukun ritual, but you are. You're the reincarnation of Yako Tsuchimikado. You are the guy who perfected the spell. You can do it on your own. Right? And that was pretty legit. That was pretty cool. And I was actually afraid for a second. I thought that for a second there was a chance that Harutora would decline Cohn and end up joining the Twin Horn Syndicate. I thought he was about to like pull a Sasuke or something. I thought he was like not necessarily turn into a bad guy, but like cease being a good guy. I thought, whoa, we'll have another Uchiha on our hands. All right, but no, that didn't happen. And another thing I was surprised about was that Genji and Shido just sat there the entire time and let her talk. I thought, like, if this girl is trying to take away the guy you need for your plans, and you're just sitting there letting her do it, like, I mean, I don't expect you to like attack her or anything, because that'll really make Harutora see you as the enemy. But at least try to like step in there and say, wait a second. I get the fact that you don't trust us. That's perfectly understandable. But do you really think but do you really think our intentions are so impure that we would like do something like I don't know. I don't know, whatever. But like, you get the point, right? Like they didn't step in and try to convince him. Like, you know, we're not. I know you don't trust us, but we aren't like that bad. I mean, come on. I'm surprised. I'm surprised they just sat there and took it. Like, but whatever. What's done is done now, and they decide to do something, but they never get a chance to do something because what ends up happening after that is the seal on the raven coat, with the raven wing or whatever you want to call it. Right, the seal gets undone, and Shido senses that, and they're like, "Wait, who could do this? It's not Doman Ashia, it's not Jin Otomo, it's certainly not those three kids out there, because we'd be able to, you know, that they wouldn't be able to do it. You know, so who could it be?" Then the doors to the room swing open, and you see that spider there. All right. You see that spider there from before, and it's holding a fan, and you see the fan, you already know who it is. You don't even need to hear his voice. I mean, the voice helps, but you don't even need to know. You didn't even need to hear it. You see the fan there, you already know. It's a divine fan, all right? It's a mommy right there, all right? I mean, not right there, but still, you know, you get the point, all right? A mommy, he's the one who's been doing all this, right? And he causes a bunch of just chaos in there, spells going off left and right. There was like smoke flying around everywhere and stuff. It was crazy. And then what's even crazier is the fact that Shido was able to just fix everything like that. You know, and that's it. You know, that was pretty surprising. It was like easy for him, like that. All right. And even though he was able to fix that situation so easily, and he like walked over to the door and turned towards Harutora, and even though he was able to fix the situation so easily, he gets shocked for some reason. You know, he's like, huh? What? like, whoa, whoa, and you're thinking like, why is he shocked for some reason after doing all that? What could surprise him? And then they show Harutora, and you're like, what? Like what? I don't get it. And then you see the shadow, then you're like, if it finally hits you, wait a second, there's something there. And then they zoom in, and then they zoom in, and then they zoom in. Then you see Touji there with this smile on his face. It was awesome. All right, it was awesome. All right, this episode was just awesome. All right, it gets a perfect 10 out of 10. All right, this episode was awesome. There's really nothing else to fanboy over. I mean, I could do it for another 10 minutes if I wanted to, but I just don't feel like it because then it would take like an extra 5 hours to render. All right, but still. All right, this episode was awesome. All right, it just was. It was awesome, and it gets a 10 out of 10. And yeah, I wish I did a live reaction to it. The only reason I didn't was because I was watching this episode the same time I was watching the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. So I kept stopping and starting. You know, that's the only reason I didn't. I wish I did though. But yeah, it was an awesome episode. And yeah, that's it, guys. Next couple episodes are going to be awesome. The last couple episodes are going to be awesome too, I bet. But yeah, that's it, you guys. This episode gets a 10 out of 10. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.